It all started with a woman, a normal, intelligent woman, who claimed her uncle is not really her uncle, but an imposter. Dr. Miles Bennell is used to the daily routine of patients with various complaints, but more and more people start telling him that the people they know, family, friends, neighbors, are being replaced. They look the same, have the same personality and memories, but they are simply not them. Had Mill Valley experienced an epidemic of mass insanity, or are people really being replaced by doppelgängers? Hello bookworms, happy Halloween and welcome to my October series of 2025. This year I am doing a video per week reviewing horror books that got movie adaptations so famous many people don't know they were actually based on a book. And this time it is the 1955 novel The Body Snatchers by Jack Finney, a book that got several movie adaptations. Most of them are called The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And to show you just how popular the movies were, some later editions of the book have the longer title because of the movies. The book takes place in California in the 1950s and follows Dr. Miles Bennell and a bunch of supporting characters as they start suspecting that the people in their lives were replaced by some inhuman doppelgängers who look and behave like the original but without their soul. And pretty soon Miles and his friend find themselves fighting an epidemic of pod people, not knowing who is real and who isn't. Now, as mentioned, this book was written in the 1950s, and one of my favorite things about horror novels is how they reflect the fear of the society at the times they were written. And if you find it equally interesting, check out my Victorian Halloween playlist from 2022, where I talked about horror novels from the 19th century. But before I dig into the horrors of the seemingly idyllic 1950s, let me tell you my opinion on the book separately, just as a book. The Body Snatchers was fun to read, but it did not age very well. I rolled my eyes and literally laughed out loud at some parts because they were so 50s. A character saying how much she hates the modern telephones where you directly dial the number without talking to an operator. Have we lost the human connection? Also, women were delicate flowers to be protected and hysterical messes to be calmed down by brave men. And one of my favorites was a description of a woman in the ripe old age of 25. So suffice to say, the book was interesting and rather enjoyable, but not something I will ever read again. It was one of those cases where the idea was better than the execution. The book's strength, though, was in the fast pacing and its ideas. The book was relatively short and it didn't take long for the action to start. This was slightly to the book's detriment because, no spoilers, but it does end rather abruptly. And obviously there is the idea of people looking like themselves but feeling different, not knowing whom to trust and who is one of them, which is really interesting. Which brings me back to the point of horror reflecting the fears of the culture in which it was written. And the cool thing about The Body Snatchers is that it was written in the 50s and got a 50s movie adaptation, but 2 decades later we got another adaptation at the end of the 70s that had the same themes but focused on different elements of them, and even had a different ending. No spoilers. And the reason for these changes had to do with the different political and societal changes between these 2 decades. The 50s were the times of the Cold War, and the Americans were really scared of communism. And you can really see it in the book's premise. Communists were dangerous people with dangerous ideas, but they looked just like you and me, as if they were spies. You never knew whom to trust, who was secretly red. And in the book itself, we had people you thought you knew but secretly were the enemy. In addition, communism kind of reflects the opposite of the American dream, where you could be whatever you want to be, no matter where you came from. Unlike in communism, where no matter who you are, everyone is basically the same. So we also have the themes of loss of self, autonomy, and individuality. However, then came the 70s, and with it the Vietnam War and a different generation whose attitude toward the war and the government was also very different. The main theme is still there. You still have people who aren't who they seem to be, but while in the original you had trust in the system, a message of uniting against the common enemy, in the 70s version, part of that enemy was the system itself. People grew jaded and had distrust of their own government. So again, we also have the theme of loss of individuality, but now it's not due to a foreign system that tries to take over, but about ex-hippies who abandoned their ideals and joined the enemy system and the workforce that put everyone in boxes. I think it's so interesting how the same concept can be taken to such different places, and commentary about different things depends on the shifts in society. You can really see it in zombie movies, how at first the main characters try to save themselves until the army came to the rescue, but in later movies the government was working against the common, honest people. Of course, the 70s also brought us second wave feminism, so there's also some commentary on the original. They have stronger female characters, while in the original they were mostly there to panic and show how heroic the men were. It kind of reminds me of the subtle commentary in Scream, which was in itself a brilliant, nuanced parody. Okay, I feel like I'm starting to blabber here, so let's go back to the point. This book is a classic, and if you like sci-fi or horror classics, or sci-fi from the 50s, which is a genre in itself, this one is a must. It was fast-paced and had a really creepy and brilliant idea. Now, I personally feel like it really shows its age to the extent that it's almost a parody of 50s tropes. It is old-fashioned. What can you do? You know, and not the romanticized, older classic kind of old-fashioned, just old-fashioned. But if you can look past it, I think you'd like it. And guys, that was my review on the Body Snatchers. Thank you for watching my video, and may I just say I had such a fun time researching this and writing this review. I absolutely love the concept of seeing how changes in society affect art. And if you're also fascinated by these things, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and make sure to check out my 2022 Victorian Halloween playlist. Also, write me a comment down below and let me know which horror book or movie really reflects something historical you care about. Again guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.